What's going on, everyone? We had a major bounce yesterday for Bitcoin, for the stock market. What this could mean for Bitcoin going forward. We're going to be taking a look into that today. Today is April 10th, 2025, and we're going to be talking about what's on the charts for Bitcoin and what could be impacting Bitcoin on other charts, such as the stock market. Will this pump or bounce continue for Bitcoin? And what are some bearish case scenarios as well? Because we got to explore both sides of the coin. Okay. And let's go ahead and dive right into the charts. Okay. Now, weekly time frame, we're going to be still my focus here because we're on the weekly 50 SMA. Been talking about the support for quite some time since last week. 76.5. Okay, that is where about where the 50 SMA weekly is for Bitcoin. Very important supports because we have not touched the supports since I think since September of last year. Okay, since basically before the breakout of that long consolidation we had last year. If you guys have been here since 2024, which wasn't that long ago, but that was basically the support, and we have not touched that since. So it's been a little bit of a time, right? In my opinion, it was it's still. I mean, we came back down to the support pretty quickly. At least comparing to previous bull cycles. Okay, but there was still a little bit of a couple of months before we actually came back down to the support. So I expected to at least give a pretty good bounce where it actually did. Yesterday, up, I think, as much as all the way back up to about 83, 84,000. Now, yesterday, I did make a video about this pattern here on the 3-day time frame, which was very important. And I think right before the pump, where I published my yesterday's videos, do take a look into that. I talked about this double bottom pattern, which is a reversal pattern, a bullish reversal pattern. So, a lot of things to talk about for this pattern here. Because, first of all, double bottom patterns are reversal patterns, right? And we had bullish divergence on the RSI. If you guys don't use the RSI, I suggest that you guys do because it's a very simple and effective indicator. Okay. What I look for is for the strength of the bounce, which we had a pretty good strong bounce on the RSI, right? And I look for divergence on the RSI, also very clear cut indicators, okay, that usually means that there is going to be a bounce. Now, how far does that bounce go? That is something to explore on a smaller time frame, right? That's my approach, right? Not financial advice, just my opinion, my speculations, right? Not a financial advisor here. Now, basically, we had yesterday's 3-day candle close, went all the way up to about closed at about 82.6. Right now, it's coming back down, possibly retesting the level of about 78,000. I would not be surprised if I see that, right? And then, what are we gonna do afterwards, right? We have built quite a bit of supports, right, on the lower time frames, right, including the 12-hour, right? We had a pretty clear cut double bottom as well, right? Bullish divergence, right? So I think the next level of support will be about 80,000. Of course, the price action could, fluctuate between that level, right? But I do expect 80,000 to be somewhat of a support here, right? At least for the on some of these lower time frames before seeing what happens. But we did get a very good bounce, as you guys can see on the RSI. There's quite a bit of things I could say about the RSI as well, including since we got a pretty strong bounce here, right? One thing that this could be implying is that if the price action was to go down and make an equal or lower low, it's going to be pretty hard for the Bears to actually beat this RSI reading, right? If you guys get what I mean. If you guys don't, make sure to comment, right? And I'll be glad to answer your question, right? But that's just how I see the RSI indicator, and those are some of the ways I can interpret it, right? In regards to the strength of the bounce and possible bounces that could come after. Okay, let's go lower. 6 hour time frame, very similar chart, double bottom, very strong bounce on the RSI here. What I'm still seeing is about that 80,000 level. Yeah, we're breaching 80,000 right now, but I mean, we haven't had a candle close yet, and the candle still could close at about 80,000, which I still expect it to be pretty strong support, at least on the lower time frames, 12 hour, 6 hour, because we have broken out of that double bottom, right? This was the neckline, 80,000. Now, if you guys, make sure you guys are following along in the charts with me, otherwise, it's probably just gonna come in one ear and come out the other one, right? I think it's very important to know what's going on the charts. Let's go ahead and come to the hourly time frame. I also look at the hourly time frame, especially if I was, trading more frequently intraday, right? Now we try to close back above the hourly 200 SMA. I'm waiting for TradingView to kind of load here, but it's not. It's taking its time a little bit. All right, I'm still waiting for it to load. So here we go. We have broken back above some moving averages on the lower time frames, right? And we have tried to close back above the hourly 200 SMA, which is the orange line. However, we're probably going to fluctuate between that if the price action was to continue higher. Let's come back to the higher time frames and talk about some key resistances and possible supports. Right, resistance. You're gonna have your 3-day 21 SMA, the blue line, along the top trend line here. I have these. I have a developing falling wedge pattern that could be established, right? That is, that will consider the downside of this price action, and of course, if it just invalidates this bounce here, right? So this is a developing falling wedge pattern. Resistance is going to be pretty clear cut. It's going to be the upper trend line, which is pretty parallel with the 3-day 21 SMA. I think a lot of your daily moving averages, including the daily 200 SMA, right? Uh, those moving averages are going to be, right along the top trend line here, as you guys can see. Basically, all your daily moving averages, some 1 3-day moving average. So quite a bit of resistance along this top trend line. Bottom trend line here, if this price action actually comes all the way back down here, the bottom trend line tells me if this price action was to drop all the way back down here, it's going to give us about 71.6. Okay, 71.6 starting from today, and it goes lower. So that is the downside scenario. Of course, got to consider both sides. I like to speak in terms of probabilities. I don't like absolutes. There's no 100% in this market, right? Let's come to the stock market. Very highly correlated with Bitcoin, of course. Very important to be paying attention to the stock market. S&P 500 mini futures. The symbol is ES1 exclamation mark. And we see a very similar chart, very strong bounce, very sharp bounce there on the daily time frame. On the weekly time frame, I talked about this, right? Possible bottom here, in my opinion, because we have retested the level of 4,800, right? Which was basically the breakout point of this cup and handle. This is the weekly time frame. The cup and handle, which the price action broke out, January 2024, and we're basically retesting that level. And it basically came, pretty precisely at 4,800. Okay, almost 4,800. Okay, of course, if this level doesn't hold, then I'm looking at the weekly 200 SMA, which is very important. Moving average, it has been the support, even though for the past few crashes, right? Even though there has been fluctuations up and down between the weekly 200. It has been the support for the COVID crash, for the 2022 crash, and possibly we dip down there, but we are at a pretty important support for the S&P 500 as well. So, in my opinion, just coming together with how the S&P 500 is correlated with Bitcoin. If this is the bottom for ES1 exclamation mark S&P 500, that will give a pretty nice setup for Bitcoin to actually rebound. So very important to be paying attention to these charts right now because quite a bit of reversal indicators are flashing. Now this wraps it up for my update today. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment if you guys have any questions. Have a beautiful day.